Turbo Optima Mid Special. Today is a very good day. The long-awaited, eagerly anticipated Turbo Optima Mid Special, usually abbreviated to the Kyosho TOMS, is finally here. If you're a fan of the Legendary series, like I am, you have been following the slow progression through the Legendary series timeline, and I think we were all hoping, we had our fingers crossed, that Kyosho would opt to bring back the Kyosho TOMS, and they have done, and yeah, over the moon, completely ecstatic. So what makes the special special? Well, back in the day, this was Kyosho's final evolution of the Optima Mid chassis before they switched over to the Laser ZX series. So they basically threw everything at this, a full set of hop-up options, but most importantly, longer wheelbase. Back in the day, this was very, very expensive and also very, very limited. So the chances of you being able to pick up one of these, especially if you're a kid growing up in the 80s, was pretty much zero. Halo car, basically. And to actually have one here, wow. It's kind of hard to believe. Super excited, as I'm sure most of the enthusiasts are as well. So let's crack open the box. I'm not going to do an unboxing, but Kyosho being Kyosho, I suspect we're going to be greeted by, yeah, blister packs. If you see my most recent video where I talk about the different approaches that the manufacturers have to their re-releases, you'll know I'm a huge Kyosho fan, and this is one of the reasons. I know some people don't really care about blister packs, they're just going to rip into them and start building it anyway, but it's nice to open a box and have all of the key components neatly laid out rather than it just being all thrown in there. Kyosho are very good with that. Almost all of the Legendary series are like this. As you can see, we've got key components here, some of the shock cases. The kit comes with universals for the front, but dog bones to the rear, full bearings. Well, full bearings, I believe there's a couple of flange bearings you need for the steering to have a full bearing specification. Body, undercowl, and a few other bits and pieces. Now, my plan for this is I plan to not only run this, but possibly enter this into local races, which are almost always indoor carpet. So I plan to set this up for indoor carpet use. I've already got a few option parts lined up, specifically the stabilizer set. Whether I end up using this or not, I don't know. I'll do some testing at my local tracks to work out whether it's needed. But stabilizer set, also have HD mid gear, idler gear, a set of universals for the rear. It does come with universals for the front, but I'd like to have ones for the rear as well. Carbon front shock stay. What we got? Hard ball ends, 5.8mm ball ends. Carbon rear shock stay for the Optima Mid. Carbon plate set for the Optima Mid. Also got the CNC motor plate. This is basically just for motor cooling. CNC rear suspension holder. Wide hubs. These are to help on carpet. Sometimes you do suffer from traction rolling, so anything you can do to widen the track, the stance of the car, really does help. So wide hub set. And then, because I am not a fan of ball diffs and they don't really tend to do well, they need a lot of maintenance if you're running them high grip. I've already gone ahead and built up 2 gear diffs. I had the parts available, so I've already got gear diffs. So this is going to be a converted to gear diff use. And then initially, I'm going with a brushed setup, old school brush setup. So the Kyosho Le Mans 490 30-turn brushed motor and a Hobbywing 1060 equivalent. At a later date, I do plan to go brushless to meet local race regulations. Super excited to get cracking on with this. I've got a few other option parts waiting to go on as well, but yeah, super excited. So I'm going to shut up here and If I remember, I'll try and put a little bit of a build montage in and come back when it's all finished. And boom, just like that, we have a completed Kyosho TOMS Turbo Optima Mid special. Now, I have to apologize. I had every intention of doing a build video, and I started out recording and taking photos, but you know how it is. You just get engrossed in the build, and before I knew it, I'd finished it and I hadn't really done any videos or a video or photo. So apologies if you were expecting some kind of build video. I'm sorry, I don't have one. I'm sure other YouTubers will do a build video much better than I could do. Actually, segue, Tonic RC. I put a community post up a couple of weeks, well, less than a week ago, I think. A new YouTube channel, a link in the description below. Go and watch his channel promo trailer video. I guarantee that by the time you finish watching that, you will smash that subscribe button. I won't spoil it, but just trust me, go watch Tonic RC's trailer video. Anyway, so yeah, apologies, no build video. Now it's finished though, what can I tell you? So these are gonna be, I'm gonna give you my thoughts on the Kyosho Turbo Optima Mid special, the build experience, what I think of it. I'm going to talk about how it compares to the other Optima Mids, most notably the standard Optima Mid and the 87 World spec. I haven't yet driven it. I haven't done the shakedown run, so I really can't comment on performance, but just general specs and the build, etc., value for money, those kind of things. So without further ado, the build experience. If you have built a Kyosho vintage series buggy, then you know the deal. This is just more the same, and Kyosho really did knock it out of the park with this one. If you have never built a legendary series, vintage series from Kyosho, what are you waiting for? Go out and buy one. You will not be disappointed. They are, in my opinion, some of the best re-releases available, full stop. This is no exception. It is a very, very good buggy, good value for money. It's expensive, to be sure. It's expensive, quite expensive, especially when you compare to the likes of Tamiya, but the quality is there. So the build experience, straightforward. The manual is pretty good for the most part. There are, I mentioned this before, I wish they'd put a bit more text and description in their manuals. There were a couple of places where perhaps a more novice builder might make a mistake due to the lack of clarity in the instructions, specifically when it comes to the body. So the actual body, the body itself is a little bit tricky to cut out. This rear part here where the spur gear cover is a little bit of a tricky cutout. The cutouts for the wing stays. As an aside, in my personal opinion, you could get away with not cutting out the body pin holes. The reason I say that is because when you've attached Velcro and you've attached it to the undertray, it is not going anywhere. You do not need the body pins. Having the body pins is pretty much like having belt and suspenders. You just don't need them both. Unfortunately, if you were not to cut out the rectangles for the body pins, it also means you would have to cut off the tabs here and on the rear shock tower, it would mean you get a cleaner look for sure, and it would save the hassle of cutting out these, you know, if it's a circular hole, it's really easy to remount, but they're rectangles, so they're a little bit more involved. But I don't think you need them both. Certainly, when I mount this body, I will not be using body pins to hold it in place, because trust me, when this is Velcroed on, it ain't going anywhere. In fact, I would go so far as to say that I don't think you need the full length of Velcro. It's a little bit overkill. Perhaps a couple of pieces here and there. Your mileage may vary, but yeah, going back to the body though, you actually paint it on the inside as you would normally do, but this back piece here is painted on the outside. And Kyosho give you some masking to mask this off. Obviously, masking on the inside is going to be really tricky, so they have you paint it on the outside. Unfortunately, in the instructions, in order to paint it on the outside, you have to remove the protective film. And then it tells you to apply it gives you a masking sheet and it tells you to apply this masking to the rear, but it doesn't mention anything about the rest of the car. And of course, the vast majority of people would kind of realize that they need to, you know, now they've removed the protective film, they're going to need to mask off or protect the rest of the body from overspray. But, you know, a novice builder might not realize that until it was too late. So, you know, it's just one of these cases where sometimes Kyosho's instructions could be a little bit better. The build itself, though, very, very straightforward. It goes together nicely. Kyosho kits, the quality is superb. The fit and finish is superb. You don't need to file things to get them to fit or ream things out. They just go together really, really nicely. I would say, though, the belt guides and a lot of the chassis pieces, they use 2.6 diameter screws, and then in other places it's typical 3mm diameter screws. It's very easy to get those mixed up because they look almost the same, so just be careful with that. If you're building your first Optima Mid, it's belt drive, and getting the gearboxes together and the belts can be a bit fiddly, so just take your time with that. But yeah, it all goes together really, really well. In fact, the only issue I had with the build wasn't to do with the kit itself, but one of the optional parts I fitted, the rear stabilizer set. If you've fitted these to any Kyoshos, you know what I'm about to say, but the plastic that Kyosho used for this piece here is very hard, very brittle, and if you're not careful, you will split it when you go to attach the ball stud. And I split it for the first time ever. Normally when I fit these, I use a hairdryer or a heat gun to warm up the plastic, and I've never had one split until the other day. I figured it's summer, it's 35 degrees outside, it's really hot, the plastic should be warm enough. I was wrong. Now fortunately I got a spare for my JJ build. These are not sold as spare parts, so if you break one, to my knowledge anyway, you have to buy the whole stabilizer set again in order to get one of these, so just be aware of that. But yeah, that was the only minor hiccup with the build. So as you can see, I fitted a brushed setup. So we've got a Kyosho Le Mans 490 30-turn brushed motor and a brushed ESC. This is just temporary. I do plan to run a full brushless setup, and I'm probably going to enter this into some indoor carpet races, hence the optional parts and upgrades. Now, the reason I've not put the brushless setup in at the moment is twofold. I have a Kyosho Le Mans ESC that is designed to screw into the chassis. In fact, I have one here on my standard Optima. I have this ESC. Now this ESC comes with Dean's connectors, but for racers I prefer to use shorty Lipos pins. So the ESC I've already gone ahead and cut the Dean's connector off and replaced it with pins. I don't really want to remove the pins and replace the Dean's connector just for a short period of time until an optional part that I really want is available. So what am I talking about? Well, I want to get the carbon upper deck optional part OTW163 for a couple of reasons. First, the kit FRP upper deck is the only part that's FRP on this chassis. I've replaced everything else with carbon, so for the sake of completion I want to replace this with a carbon piece. And secondly, and more importantly, in kit form this will accept quite a wide variety of battery types, so you can install standard stick packs, whether they're Lipo, NiCad, NIMS, whatever. You can also install full length square Lipo packs, and if you really want to go old school, they've got the chassis cutouts for sub C. You have to cut some tabs off to do it, but yeah, you can mount sub C. But I want to fit shorty Lipo, and unfortunately in this configuration shorty Lipo will not fit into the chassis. The belts that hold the Lipo in place are too far apart to hold it securely. So Kyosho are going to offer this optional upper deck. It's due out sometime in July, and it's got a cutout here. It's much narrower in this part, and what that allows you to do, I believe, is you can rotate these battery tie downs, move the belts closer together, and thus fit a shorty Lipo. And that's what I want to do. So that's why I've got a temporary brush setup in. There's another reason that I've discovered why I really want to get that optional part, and that is to do with the undertray. So kudos to Kyosho when they're going to re-release a buggy. Unlike, you know, for example, Tamiya, who just basically just re-released it as it was back in the day, Kyosho's approach is to look at the design, modify it for modern day electronics, modern day powertrains, improve areas they can, just basically modify the design and make it better. Now, I never owned one of these back in the day, so I don't know, but I've been told that the undertray design on the original wasn't the best. And so Kyosho have basically redesigned the undertray to make it fit better. So the undertray on the re-release is held in place in 4 places. So it tucks under the front bumper here. Then you've got 2 clips here. And then at the back, you can see it's held in place with 2 3mm screws. Now those clips go through the undertray onto, again, I'm not sure the camera's going to pick this up, but you've got these 2 little kind of tabs, and you can rotate these tabs. So in this position, they're sitting above the chassis and they hold the undertray in place. But you can rotate them, and the reason you can rotate them is with the chassis, the undertray held in position like this, you can't fit a battery into the chassis, because if I undo the belt, the issue is underneath here, running down the center of the car, is a belt guide, and that's stopping the battery from being inserted. Now, if you try and force this, you could force the undertray down. Maybe you could get it to slide in, but you're just going to damage the undertray regularly doing that, and you're probably going to crack it. And so that's what these tabs are for. You can rotate them. I'm not sure the camera's going to pick this up, but you can rotate them like this. And once you do, the undertray can drop down, which is great, because then you can, you know, push the undertray down and take the battery and slide it into the battery holder. Now the problem is, well, I say problem, it's not a problem. It's just, I would say more accurately, the oversight. The oversight is, and eagle-eyed viewers probably can tell, once the battery is in place, the hook, the clip, is now underneath the battery. So it's really hard, if not impossible, to get back to that clip to lock the undertray in place. Now, it's not really an issue or problem because the undertray has Velcro all around the side. The body has Velcro. So once you put the body on, the Velcro is just going to hold the undertray in position anyway. But, you know, I think it's a little bit of an undersight. They've given you these hooks, clips, to basically hold the undertray against the chassis. But in order to fit the battery, you need to undo one of them. But then once the battery's in, you can't relock it in position, not easily. Maybe you could squeeze your finger under there, So it's a little bit of an oversight. Again, it's minor, but I just thought I'd point that out as another reason why I definitely want to install the carbon upper deck optional part. Again, that's due sometime in July, I believe. But aside from that, I am totally loving how this came out. I had every intention to do box art, but I changed direction right at the last minute. The reason was mainly due to aesthetics. So I fitted the Kyosho optional 2mm extra wide wheel hubs to increase the tread of the car and mitigate any kind of possible traction rolling for indoor carpet use. Unfortunately, I didn't like the aesthetics when I fitted the TOMS specific front wheels and tires. So up until now, the Optima, the Turbo Optima, the Javelin, the Optima Mid, the 87 wheels, the Optima Pro, they all have the exact same wheels and tires at all four corners. But with this TOMS, Kyosho are offering slightly narrower, I'm not sure the camera's going to pick that up, slightly narrower front wheels and tires, which is great. But I found that when I'd fitted the wide hubs and then fitted these narrower tires, they just seemed to be pushed out too far, and it just looked like the offset was a bit on the extreme side. I just didn't like the look, and I just preferred the aesthetic of the normal wheels and tires. And I only have two. These are the rears from the kit. I only have two of these, and so I raided my parts bin, came across some black Turbo Optima wheels, put them on, and then it was like, right, I'm going to do red. And so it's kind of a Ferrari inspired color scheme, red and black, and it's got all the carbon on it as well. So I fitted a black rear wing. I've had somebody ask me, what does this say? What does this say on the decal? This is Akira design in Japanese katakana. Akira Kogawa. Kogawa Akira-san is the man behind the Kyosho Legendary series, Vintage series, and the Kyoshos back in the day. If you don't know who he is, well, go watch Kyosho's YouTube channel, and you'll see loads of his videos talking about all the Kyosho. He is basically the guy at Kyosho. This is from his decal set, Akira design. So I just really like the text and stuff, so I put it on. But yeah, I am super pleased with how this turned out, and looking forward to a shakedown run. Hopefully it will be dry this weekend and I can take it out and get a shakedown run. So I will of course shoot a video, and at the same time I plan to run this and then compare it with this, the standard Optima Mid. This is my standard Optima Mid. This is completely stock, so it's not really the most fairest of comparisons, given that this has got some option parts that I put onto it. I already know I'm gonna like the way this drives. The longer wheelbase does wonders for the car. Aesthetically, I think this looks so much better for the extra wheelbase. It also gives you more options for electronics and packaging. But I just prefer, personal opinion, I prefer longer wheelbase cars. I find the handling more to my liking, it suits my driving style more. The standard Optima Mid has quite a short wheelbase. It's very reactive. It changes direction very quickly, almost too quickly on carpet. It's twitchy, I want to say. If you like that kind of handling in a car, then the Optima Mid is definitely going to tick all the boxes for you. But I prefer a little bit more sedate, something that doesn't perhaps rotate as well as a short wheelbase car would do. So I suspect even before I run these back to back, this one is going to be more to my liking. But trying to make this video useful, if you're in the market for an Optima Mid, which one would I recommend you go for? The standard Optima Mid, the TOMS Turbo Optima Mid Special, or the 87 Worlds Optima Mid? That's a tough question. There is a big difference in price. Locally in Japan, these retail, you can pick these up for around 45,000 yen or thereabouts. The Kyosho TOMS, newly released, they are, MSRP is about 74,000 yen. You can pick them up for around 65,000 yen. So there's a big difference in price, 45,000 yen, 65,000 yen. The 87 wheels, I completely forgot how much I paid for that, but I think it was the better part of 70,000 yen for that car as well. So quite expensive. In terms of differences, not as much as you might expect. Again, I built this a few years ago, and without digging out the manual and looking at the part numbers, the only things that really stand out, aside from the obvious, the longer wheelbase and this having an aluminium chassis and this having a carbon FRP hybrid, this has got turnbuckles, this one doesn't. Again, just to reiterate, this has got a lot of option parts that I put on that were not in the kit. So main differences, I believe this came with universals at the front. This comes with universals at the front, but dog bones at the back. This definitely came with dog bones at the back. The dampers are essentially identical. The springs are different, that's it. This one uses hard suspension arms. I believe the standard Optima Mid just uses the regular plastic, regular mixed plastic, not the hard reinforced ones. The TOMS has got some upgrades to the gearbox. Most notably the slipper clutch, I believe, is better on this one. But aside from that, there are not that many changes between the two. So this is actually really good value for money, really good value for money. The 87 wheels is probably, in terms of what you get and the spec you get, is probably the best buy, because that has a whole host of optional parts on it. This is full bearing specification except for 2 flange bearings for the steering bell cranks. Everything else is full bearings. This was full bearings again, except for the bearings in the steering. I believe the 87 wheels, which I have but I haven't built, is completely full bearings everywhere, and plus several option parts. All of the alloy parts are all gunmetal. So in terms of value for money, the 87 wheels is probably the best. If I had to choose between the three, tough choice. I can't really say until I've driven this one, and I haven't built the 87 wheel spec Optima Mid, so it wouldn't really be, you know, I can't really objectively choose one. But out of these two, I would choose this purely for the longer wheelbase and the aesthetics and the handling characteristics that would result from the longer wheelbase. Well, anyway, that's it for this video. Hopefully, like I said, I can get to the park at the weekend, do a running video over this, and then I'll run these back to back and report back on what I like. Again, it's not going to be a really fair comparison because this has got option parts on, this one doesn't. This has got a brushless setup, this one's got a brushed 30-turn brush, so it's not going to be the best comparison, but I'll try and share my thoughts. So anyway, thanks for watching. My name is David. You've been watching Kyosho RC. I'll catch you in the next one.